You really think you're worth that? Curtis said it with that smug smirk like he was doing me a favor just by letting me breathe the same air. Then he leaned back in his chair and let out this obnoxious fake-ass laugh that bounced off the glass walls like I was the punchline of some inside joke. "Good luck finding something better," he added, loud enough that a few folks outside the room turned their heads. I stared at him, jaw tight. There were 3 of them in the room. Curtis, the head of hiring, a quiet HR rep named Tina who wouldn't look me in the eye, and some guy from finance I didn't recognize. The offer they'd just slid across the table, it was an insult. Same pay I made 4 years ago in a junior role. No bonus, no relocation, no equity. 8 years in battery material reclamation, one of the most specialized cutthroat sectors in the country. And this clown thought he could laugh me into submission? I helped design the lithium extraction protocol that half the Western region was now mimicking. And they wanted to lowball me? "Let me make something clear," I said, standing up. "You're not the ones doing me a favor. You're the ones who just miscalculated." Curtis raised his eyebrows like I was some ungrateful rookie. He said something under his breath to the finance guy, chuckling again, but I didn't stick around to catch it. I grabbed my folder, nodded once at Tina, still couldn't meet my eye, and walked out of that glass box with my back straight and my pulse punching through my neck. Outside in the hallway, I didn't slow down, just kept moving till I hit the parking lot. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I climbed into my truck and slammed the door harder than I meant to. Just sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring at the dashboard like it might tell me what the hell I was supposed to do next. Rent was due in 2 weeks, gas gauge was at a quarter tank, and I just walked out of what might have been my last solid lead. But I couldn't stay there, not after that laugh. Not after Curtis made it clear they didn't value what I brought to the table. I wasn't going to be another guy they underpaid and forgot about. My stomach twisted in knots, but I started the engine anyway. Time to find out what I was really made of. I pulled into my lot just past 6, engine still ticking when I shut it off. Inside, my apartment felt smaller than usual. 1 bedroom, 1 window, peeling linoleum in the kitchen, and the smell of damp carpet that never fully aired out. I tossed my keys on the counter, yanked open the fridge, and grabbed the last pork chop I'd cooked 3 nights ago, microwaved it on a paper plate, and sat at the wobbly table with my laptop open, Gmail pulled up but unread. The meat was dry. I chewed it anyway. Phone rang. Ray. I hit answer on speaker and kept chewing. He didn't waste time. "You serious? You walked out?" "They laughed in my face," I said. It was a joke offer. Ray exhaled hard. "You sure you can afford to be proud right now?" That one landed. Not because he was wrong, but because he knew exactly what kind of hell I'd been through to get here. "I'm not proud," I said. "I'm just done being used." Daryl's face flashed in my head. My old boss at Trichem. He used to call my work impressive for a junior. That same junior wrote the process that landed them a 7-figure contract. He slapped his name on it and left me off the patent filing entirely. Ray stayed quiet. He knew that story. I hung up without saying goodbye, closed Gmail, and opened a blank Google Doc, updated my resume line by line, tightened every bullet point. Removed, collaborated with senior team, and wrote exactly what I did. Developed end-to-end lithium extraction protocol now used across 3 major regional labs. Then I applied to 16 jobs. Not random spam either. Real roles in my field, in the places I was willing to move to. Baton Rouge, Cleveland, Tulsa, Reno. By 10, I had 3 phone screens scheduled for next week. One of the listings asked for 10 years experience and offered less than what I made 5 years ago. I applied anyway, with conditions. Then I did the math. I had 51 days of savings if I killed every expense I didn't need. No takeout, no streaming, just rent, insurance, gas, and groceries. The silence got too loud around midnight, so I turned off the lamp and stared at the ceiling, hands folded across my chest like I was waiting to die or get a phone call. Neither came. Next morning, the rain started before sunrise. I laced up my shoes, left my phone on the counter, and ran 5 miles through it, pushed through soaked socks, side cramps, and the metallic taste in my throat. I just needed to move. I didn't care about pace. I just wanted to remember what it felt like to have control over something, over anything. By the time I made it back to the apartment, my hoodie was dripping and my calves were screaming, but I felt sharper, meaner, hungry. I toweled off, made coffee, black, no creamer, no sugar, and sat down at the kitchen table again, pulled up my interview prep slides, and started tightening up my pitch deck. The first one was Tuesday. Battery recovery firm out of Dayton. They wanted to talk through my process. Perfect. Because this time, I was going to own it all. Name on top, eyes forward, voice steady. And I wasn't leaving anything on the table. I was 3 slides into my process breakdown, rewriting a section header for the 5th time when my phone lit up. Unknown number, area code local. I almost let it ring out. Then I picked up. Yeah? Is this Dominic Romano? The voice was smooth, practiced, serious. Who's asking? This is Malcolm Trent. He paused, like the name should carry weight. CEO of Westcore Materials. I froze. The same company whose hiring panel laughed me out of their office 3 days ago. He kept talking like it was just another business call. I've been reviewing your process documentation. My engineering leads flagged some significant cost differentials. I took a closer look myself. It's remarkable work. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence hang. We may have underestimated what you were offering us, he added. Underestimated? That was one way to put it. He cleared his throat. The truth is, I believe you're sitting on a breakthrough. One we didn't recognize, at least not right away. I dropped my pen and leaned back in the chair. You want me back after your team laughed in my face? I said. To be clear, he said, that shouldn't have happened. I apologize for their conduct. But I'd like to ask if you're still open to a conversation. You want me, Malcolm? I said, my voice flat. Here's what it takes. 15% above market, full division lead. I pick the team, I run the protocols, and company-wide transparent pay bands. Everyone knows what everyone else makes. He didn't answer right away. That's a lot, he finally said. Not compared to what I'll make you, I said. You either want what I bring or you don't. I need to speak with the board, he said. You've got 10 minutes, I said, and hung up. Didn't even let him answer. My heart was racing, hands cold. I paced the kitchen like I'd just disarmed a bomb. 8 minutes later, my email pinged. Subject: apology and next steps. It was from Curtis, the smug hiring manager himself. Paragraphs of corporate groveling. He deeply regretted the tone of our last meeting, said he had misjudged my experience and value to the team, asked if we could put the past behind us and start fresh. The guy who laughed in my face was now begging for a second chance. I didn't reply. Instead, I picked up the phone and texted Ray. You're not going to believe who just called, he replied instantly. They crawl back? All the way. That night I cracked a beer and stared at my whiteboard full of scribbled job notes and red X's. It was all still up in the air, nothing signed, no guarantees. But I'd finally pulled the power back to my side of the table. And this time, I wasn't giving it up. Next morning, Malcolm called. No small talks, just, we accept your terms. Pay transparency policy will begin rolling out immediately, with full company-wide implementation in 6 months. I didn't thank him, just said, good call, and hung up. 2 weeks later, I walked through the front doors of Westcore Materials like I owned the place. Because in a way, I did. Director of Extraction Systems, corner office, glass door with my name on it. Double the salary they first offered. Curtis didn't even make eye contact when I passed him in the hall. First thing I did was schedule a sit-down with HR. 2 women showed up, 1 junior, 1 senior. They came in with tight smiles and clipboards. I need full compensation data for my department, I said. Roles, years in, education, race, gender, pay bands, all of it. The senior one blinked. That kind of report takes time, and normally I leaned forward. Who signed off on my hire? She shifted in her chair. Malcolm? Then let's not waste each other's time. 2 hours later, I had the report, and it was worse than I expected. Women were getting 20% less than men in identical roles. Black and Latino employees, same pattern. Hell, even guys with foreign-sounding last names got dinged a few thousand. I didn't wait. I booked a conference room, sent the invite to every person in my department, chemists, analysts, techs, admin staff. 37 names, subject, new standards, non-negotiable. They shuffled in looking curious, some nervous. Curtis was there. So was Nolan. Yeah, that Nolan. The one who laughed the loudest during my first interview. I spotted him near the back, arms crossed, already scowling. I didn't waste time with introductions. "I'm going to walk you through something," I said, hooking up the projector. "What you see stays in this room, until it doesn't." I showed them the anonymized company data, broke it down line by line. Names were stripped, but everyone could see the pattern. Discrepancies by gender, discrepancies by race, pay gaps that didn't even try to hide. Silence. I let it sit for 10 full seconds. "This ends now," I said. Nolan shifted like he'd swallowed glass. One of the younger techs in the front, Paloma, I think, looked like she was going to cry. I didn't let it get sentimental. "We're adjusting comp across the board," I said. "I've already submitted the request. No more guessing who's making what. No more silence. If anyone has a problem with that, speak now." Nobody spoke. Curtis started to raise his hand, then dropped it. "Good," I said. "Because this is the floor. Not the ceiling." I shut off the projector, unhooked my laptop, and walked straight out of the room. Didn't wait for applause. Didn't care. I had work to do. The second the door closed behind me, I knew Nolan wasn't going to let that meeting slide. By the end of the day, 2 invites disappeared off my calendar. Both meetings I was supposed to lead. A week later, my lab order for the thermal reactor got lost in procurement. 3 times, turned out Nolan was chief of operations. Same smug face, different title. He couldn't fire me, so he tried to choke me out with bureaucracy. I didn't bite. Paloma, one of my newer analysts, picked up on it quick. She was sharp, always 2 steps ahead, always watching patterns. She flagged the first blocked request. Rico, our lead chemical tech, confirmed it. The order hit ops, sat in limbo, then magically got canceled. I told them both, start documenting. Everything, every delay, every change, every meeting rescheduled last minute. We built a shared drive and dropped every screenshot, every email, every dead-end request in it. Nolan thought he was being slick. We just worked around him. I rerouted orders through a test pilot vendor in Tucson. Unofficial, but legal. Rico drove out once to pick up backup parts himself. 6 weeks in, we had a working prototype. The recovery efficiency and waste reduction metrics held steady across validations. Numbers strong enough to put us 2 quarters ahead of our competition. Paloma ran the data 3 different ways. Same result. We booked a board presentation. Malcolm showed, CFO showed, legal showed, even Curtis slithered in, pretending like he hadn't been avoiding me in the hall for a month. I stood up, plugged in the deck, and laid it all out. Clean, no fluff. Just numbers, charts, process maps, and impact projections. "This process cuts chemical costs by almost half," I said, "and puts us 2 quarters ahead of our competition." They leaned in. Nolan waited till the end to pounce. "We haven't fully validated the safety metrics. It's premature to push forward without a compliance review." I didn't even blink. "Page 14, I said. "OSHA compliance documented, environmental flag zeroed out, safety metrics validated by 3 independent labs." I clicked ahead, showed them the lab sign-offs. Paloma handed out printed copies. Nolan sat back like he'd been slapped. The board nodded. A few even smiled. When the meeting ended, people filtered out. Curtis walked straight past me like I didn't exist. Malcolm didn't. He waited until the room cleared, then pulled me aside. "That was impressive work," he said. "Real impressive." I nodded. "Thanks." He glanced at the door Nolan had just walked through. "What's his deal?" I met his eyes. "We can talk about that any time." He didn't push, just gave a little nod and walked out. Back in my office, I closed the door and sat down at my desk. Rico sent me a thumbs up, GIF. Paloma forwarded the final analytics summary. I replied to both. "We're not done. Keep everything. We'll need it." The next week, I walked past the 3rd floor conference room and caught my name through the door. "Romano's pilot is off the table until further notice." Nolan's voice. I didn't even break stride. I pushed the door open and walked straight in. 10 people froze mid-sentence. He didn't look surprised, just annoyed. Like I'd ruined his little ambush. "Sorry," I said, loud and clear. "This some kind of strategy meeting I wasn't invited to?" No one answered. Nolan cleared his throat. "Just trying to get aligned on priorities. Given the budget constraints..." "Cut the crap," I said. "The extraction system you're trying to kill? That equipment's already ordered, paid for. CEO signed contract. Delivery starts." Monday I pulled out the folder, slapped the signed PO on the table. Silence. Nolan's face didn't move, but I saw the twitch in his jaw. I turned to the team. "We're not canceling anything. In fact, we're locking the launch timeline right now." I walked to the whiteboard, grabbed a marker, and started assigning tasks. Rico, final pressure tests. Paloma. Q, protocols and third-party validation. Everyone else got their blocks. I didn't ask. I told. The tension snapped as people started scribbling notes and nodding. The energy in the room flipped in real time. Nolan just sat there, gripping the edge of the table like it might hold him back from lunging. I never looked at him again. When the meeting ended, he followed me out. I made it 3 steps down the hall before he caught up. "You've made a serious miscalculation," he hissed. I stopped, turned to face him. "You really think I came unprepared?" His mouth opened, but I walked away before he could answer. Back in my office, I pulled up the shared drive and dropped every bit of evidence from the past 2 weeks into a folder marked Nolan, interference, email trails, blocked orders, meeting removals, his little stunt today, all of it. Then I drafted a message. To Malcolm Trent. Subject, project obstruction, urgent attached everything. Short, clean, professional tone, but there was no missing the intent. I hit send. After that, I kept my foot on the gas. We pushed harder, worked smarter. The lab buzzed like we were building something bigger than just a new system, because we were. You could feel it in the way Rico smiled when the new coils held under pressure, the way Paloma handed me updates before I asked. Everyone was in, and Nolan, he could either get out of the way or get run over. The quarterly town hall was packed. Folding chairs lined the back wall, people shoulder to shoulder, waiting on leadership to pat themselves on the back. Nolan was first up. Of course he was. He strutted up like he was walking onto a TED stage, wearing that smug half smile like he knew no one would call him out. Slide 1, operational efficiencies, Q3 review. And right there, in big bold font, were numbers pulled straight from my process. Our recovery rate increased by 37%, he said, pausing like he expected applause. Waste down by nearly half. Huge credit to our ops team for pushing this through under tight timelines. I didn't move, just stared at him while he recycled my exact phrasing. He clicked through 5 more slides. My work, my team's output, my pilot, all under his banner. Then he said, "We'll continue scaling across divisions based on the current implementation plan." That was it. No mention of Rico, no Paloma, not even a nod to the lab team who made it happen. He stepped down to polite claps. I walked up slow, plugged in my laptop, clicked once. First slide, credit where it's due. Then I showed the original prototype design with date stamps. Rico's name on testing, Paloma's QA notes, sign-offs, procurement trail, the full lab validation report, all tied to my team, not ops. Nolan didn't even blink, just folded his arms and stared through me like I was static. Then I hit slide 6. Phase 1 compensation adjustments. A collective inhale rippled through the room. Transparency policy is now live in this division, I said. Starting next check, adjusted salaries will reflect role equity across gender, race, and tenure. Pay bands will expand company-wide over the coming months. Someone gasped. A woman near the back clapped once, then more followed. The room erupted. I scanned the crowd. Nods, shocked smiles. Some people just sitting with their mouths open. Nolan, gone. Slipped out halfway through the noise like a rat from a sinking floorboard. I wrapped the deck and left without waiting around. 30 minutes later, Malcolm's assistant flagged me. "He wants to see you." I walked into his office. Nolan was already sitting there, arms tight, mouth set. Malcolm nodded at me. "He says you're building a parallel power structure." "That true?" I didn't flinch, just pulled a folder from my bag and dropped it on the table. Every blocked order, sabotage attempt, credit theft, and off-book meeting he ran. It's all there. Backed up twice, Malcolm flipped through the first few pages. Didn't say much. Nolan didn't say anything at all. After a beat, Malcolm said, "Got it. I'll review this." I turned to leave, paused at the door, and looked back. "Let me know if you need help building the next structure," I said. "The right way." Then I walked out. 3 days later, the company sent out a vague 2-paragraph email. "We're excited to announce that Nolan Reeves will be transitioning into an advisory capacity. He'll continue lending his experience to special projects while stepping away from daily operations." Translation: no team, no meetings, no power. They took his badge access down to guest level. Didn't even let him park in the executive lot. I didn't gloat. I didn't have to. Malcolm called me into his office that afternoon. No small talk. He just said, "We want you as EVP, Operations and Innovation. You'd be leading your current division and taking over Nolan's organization." I nodded once. "If I say yes, the comp equity program keeps going." He didn't hesitate. "Faster," he said. "We need it company-wide." I shook his hand. "Then I'm in." By the next Monday, I had a new title on the org chart and a second office 2 floors up. 6 months earlier, I'd been laughed out of that building. Now I was running half of it. I brought Rico and Paloma into every planning meeting, brought in 2 more techs from outside the old boys club, gave the data team their own project pipeline. Productivity shot through the roof. Turnover cut in half. We weren't just fixing systems, we were rebuilding the damn foundation. Even the board noticed. By quarter 2, our division was outperforming every benchmark they'd set. Competitors started sniffing around. One firm in Arizona offered to license our recovery tech. Another from Michigan asked if we'd lead a joint research initiative. I started getting calls from execs I hadn't heard from in years, suddenly curious about how we were running things. Malcolm passed me in the hallway one morning and said, "They're all watching now." I said, "Let them." Nolan's name hadn't come up in weeks. Nobody asked where he was. Nobody cared. It was like he'd vanished. And maybe that's what stung him the most. Not the title, not the office, not the pay. The silence. No one needed him anymore. We'd built something that worked, something people wanted to be part of, and we weren't slowing down. Our quarterly strategy meeting kicked off with the usual numbers: performance charts, market updates, a few slides about upcoming compliance changes. Then Malcolm stood up and said, "We've got a new addition to the extraction systems team." She looked like she wanted to disappear into the carpet. "Everyone, meet Akira Tanaka," he said, fresh out of grad school, materials engineering, Berkeley. She'll be joining Paloma's unit. The kid gave a tiny wave and sat back down so fast, I don't think anyone caught her face. After the meeting, I was grabbing my notes when I felt a tap on my arm. "Mr. Romano?" I turned. Akira stood there holding her portfolio like it was a life raft. "I read your article in Clean Systems Monthly," she said. "The Transparency Initiative, the Reclamation Protocol. Honestly, it's the reason I applied here." I nodded. "Glad to have you, Akira." "You're gonna do good work here." She hesitated. Her grip on the folder tightened. "At my last job," she said, dropping her voice, "I found out I was making 18 grand less than a guy who did half the work. HR told me I wasn't supposed to talk about it." I looked her straight in the eye. "You're not at that job anymore." She blinked. "Here," I said, "no one hides what they earn. If something's off, you bring it straight to me or Paloma. Understood?" She nodded, and I saw the tension crack. Not gone, but loosened. The smile that followed wasn't forced. It was real. Grateful. That night, I was back in my office finishing up slide edits for the next board review. Rico had left a pack of peanut M&Ms on my desk with a sticky note that just said, "Fuel." I cracked the bag open and sat down. Phone buzzed. News alert. Trichem Materials loses key client in surprise contract pivot. Stock drops 22% in after-hours trading. Daryl's company, the one that stole my work, buried my name, told me to be patient and wait my turn. I stared at the headline, let the numbers settle in. Then I leaned back in my chair, cracked open a cold beer from the mini fridge under the desk, and let the silence stretch. Sometimes the best revenge isn't burning bridges. It's building one so solid everyone else is forced to watch you cross it.